Welcome. My name is Greg McKenzie. I'm the founder here at ZenPilot, and I want to start our time together with the question that you probably get asked every day, which is, what is your project management methodology? I realize that question's probably never been asked to you before. It sounds super boring. It's actually super important, and I want to explain why it matters. And then I just want to take you through our simple project management methodology, what this looks like, why the key principles are what they are, and help you think through, hey, how should we be applying this to the work that we're doing right now? So let's go ahead and dig in. I've got a couple different docs in this ClickUp doc where we house kind of our methodology. But just want to be able to share this real quickly. If I asked your team, hey, what's distinctive about the way that you work? And you've got 5 bullet points that I need you to write down. And we're just sitting around a table, but each person's working in silence for 60 seconds. When we go around the room and we're reading those off, how much overlap is there between those answers? Are we getting 80% of those shared? Are we getting 20% of those shared? Does everybody kind of look with blank stares when that happens? I've done this exercise before, and the blank stares thing is kind of like, I don't know what you mean. Give some examples. And then some teams actually do have a pretty solid understanding of how they think they want to or ought to be working right now, or even how they are working. And what I find a lot, though, is that we've got a couple people who have some sharp opinions about how work ought to be happening, but it's not shared. And so if we run into, I've seen some really, really cool ClickUp workspaces or project management solutions. And when I see you've got 3 people over here in the development department who have this really neat way of working, and you got a couple people over here in creative, and they've got this way of working. You got this accounts team over here, and they've got a different way of working. Those 3 things, then the pain point that I hear expressed most commonly is, we've got all these issues with visibility. Like I can't see where there are issues across the wider org. And the answer is because there's no unifying methodology here. So we need to solve that first before we get into the technical application of it, which is super important. We can't have vision without also combining that with traction. Like, where does the rubber meet the road here in how we're executing? But both of those pieces really matter. So let's just take a look at this real quickly. The key components of ZenPilot's simple project management methodology. There's 5 main points here. And so let's go into the Spark Notes one real quickly so we can see that. First one is embracing a single source of truth. This has 3 subcompartments to it. One is, for us, we're running on ClickUp. If it's not in ClickUp, it didn't happen. So if you want credit for all this work that you've been doing in ClickUp, then I should get an answer, and it should actually tell me what he's worked on, where things are falling through the cracks, what things took longer than expected, what things he was able to get done a lot quicker than expected, what's his capacity for next week. Like, I should be able to answer all these questions because of having everything in a single place, or at least connected. Second piece is that our system mirrors our structure. I'll do a whole separate video on this one because this is a little hard at first to understand, but basically, hey, every area of the business, as we're talking through where does my work live, at least at ZenPilot, everything falls into one of 3 buckets. It's either growing the business. There's lots of ways to grow the business, but we're talking about intentionally spending time to go acquire new clients. That looks like our marketing and sales work, anything that we're doing business development related. Delivery is, hey, we made all these promises with the growth team. Now we have to keep those promises, and that's what delivery is all about. So all of our customer service, all of our clients, all the contracts that we're servicing all happen here in delivery. Or it's operations. What's the rest of the things that it takes to keep this business running? That's people, HR, legal, finance, and all that kind of stuff. So there needs to be a home for everything. And so that's a piece of having a single source of truth. Then, okay, that's great, but now we've got to have somewhere for all of that work to live naturally where people can quickly find it. And then once we have that framework, people need to actually follow the framework. So those are the 3 pieces that we have as subpoints of embracing a single source of truth. But you've got, in so many organizations that we work with, they've got 30 different apps running all different pieces, and this team runs in this one, but this team preferred that because somebody who came in was more familiar with that tool. And that can work totally fine at the beginning. And as you scale it, just that problem only becomes harder and harder to deal with. So embracing a single source of truth is the first principle. The second principle is maybe the most controversial one, and that is prioritize work using due dates. So our shorthand for this, we have shorthand for a lot of these. We talk about, hey, the due date is the due date, what day it's going to get executed. So that means on our work, every actionable task, that's a whole rabbit trail. I won't even go down that. I will. I lied. Let's go down that for a second. Not every single task in here is actionable. This is a database of client accounts with where those client accounts are at, who's responsible for it, what's the health, kind of AI-generated summary of what this might look like. We can obviously regenerate that. Anytime there's updates made to the task, we can have that update, all this other information. We could spend a whole video just on this. My point is not every single task is actionable, so the due date matters slightly less on these. We still use due dates in this case because of updates that our team members are making. But for every other, anything that's not like a record somewhere or a custom task that we've brought to something else, every task gets a due date, and that's how we communicate priority. So if we look at this slightly longer explanation of this, the important principle here is teams need a shared way of prioritizing work. So you can't tell me, hey, I have 3 big things that I need to get done this week, and that's how I'm prioritizing things. But then someone else is expected to follow, hey, they've got 14 different tasks, and each of those due dates, those have to be done when they're done. And some other team's running on sprints, and they've got a different prioritization methodology. Someone's is on their whiteboard. Like, everyone's got a different way. There's no way to know, hey, what is the shared priority across the team? Or if you're managing a team, what does it look like to actually know? How do you fit all those together or have any type of unified view of who has what that's important where? So getting everything into the system and having a shared way to prioritize it makes a ton of sense. Now, I'm open to other ways of prioritization. So this is one where some teams come in and they've got one really well established. This is very rare, but if they do, that's great. You can keep using that. Most of the time, when they start with a separate way of prioritizing, that then plays itself out anyways as due dates on tasks in the project management system. So from my perspective, I think most teams ought to be using a due date driven approach to work because you're going to do that step anyways. And so you're saving yourself a step. And I'm huge on trying to find what's the fastest way to get excellent work done as quickly as possible. And so I think for most teams, you ought to be using a due date driven approach. Okay, let's go to the third principle here. And that is make the process live where the work gets done. So what we're talking about is nobody on your team should be hunting for SOPs. If you get assigned a task, so let's just take a template, and we'll grab a template example here. So we'll go into our template library. We'll go to task templates under account management. And what I wanted to find was one of these like new client onboarding tasks or a client migration. And so if this is a relatively simple one, but there's documentation. It's going to link out to our knowledge base document. Hey, here's the full details on how to do client migration. That way we can update it one time in that doc and it shares for everyone. And every existing task gets updated with that process. Every new future task also gets updated with that process. But we also have checklists on the task specifically. So you don't have to hunt it all. You're just going through your day-to-day. You find all your work out of your home screen where you're starting your day, your My Tasks view. And then when you click in to start working on this task, you've got the task all set there. And when I'm planning out new work, I'm able to real quickly apply those by having templates organized and saved to the template center in ClickUp so that when I'm adding a task, I can just pull in the template shortcut and grab whatever that template specifically is. If I wanted to grab a blog post template, I'm just applying it here. And I already have all the subtasks, the timeline, custom fields, like all the stuff that I need for it is already ready to be deployed. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when I say make the process live where the work gets done. This principle, I would love for this to stick with you. Ready? The biggest driver of a team's ability to scale high quality outcomes is their ability to create, follow, improve, and simplify process. And each one of those 4 steps that I talk about at the end are crucial. So do we have an organized way that we're creating these? Have we trained our team to actually follow them? That's an expectation. We don't tolerate when we don't meet the expectation. Like, that's what we do. Do we have a systematic way that we improve it and it gets better over time? And part of that improvement is simplify. So in my head, improve and simplify go together. It's like, if this is getting better, it's getting simpler, not more complex over time. But I do think you could certainly make improvements depending on what you're solving for. You could make improvements that make it more complex. We're looking for ways to simplify it over time. I love working with a team who's been working together for 5 to 10 years. It's like relatively well-oiled. Where I experience this mostly is with teams who are going from kind of very low software maturity, how tech enabled they are, but they have a really mature product or service offering. And so there's a lot of team unity around how work gets done. There's just ways to do it a lot more efficiently if they do it online. And it's so fun to work with folks who've experienced the benefits of all four of those. Like, hey, we know how to create it, we know how to follow it, and we do that well. We know how to improve it, and it's gotten simpler over time. One tip for like, hey, how are we systematic about how we're building these out and organizing them is using a template catalog. So having, hey, this is every single template that we've got. We know what stage they're at. We know who's responsible for it, where it falls, what type of template it is. There's a whole bunch of other info and ways that this whole thing works together. But you could start with just a really simple version of it that's simply, what's the name of our templates, who's responsible for it, how frequently do we need to update it, and then let's just make sure that we've got a saved copy of all that anybody could go in and say, oh, I need to use logo design, so I'm going to add a new task, grab the template, go to the logo design template, and deploy from there. Okay, number 4, healthy shared habits beat the best intentions. This is not all that it is, but when we talk about it internally, we talk about everyone has a daily startup and shutdown routine. In fact, let's go to my task view or my home view here. So I've got a daily shutdown routine. Again, we talk about, hey, what's the process? What does this checklist look like? I can click in to this task. I can go see what my checklist looks like as I'm closing out my day. So those are not the only 2 habits that everybody should have, but those are 2 super important habits that everyone should have. What does your shutdown routine look like? At the end of every day, what's your startup routine? This, to a number of our clients, has felt overly prescriptive at the beginning from specifically from smaller business owners. A lot of folks who are still in business, and I should say earlier stage, probably not even just smaller, they're running a business because they hated working for someone else. They value autonomy super highly, and having nobody looking over their shoulder saying, here's what you do. And what they wind up doing frequently, and I know this because this was me too, is imposing their set of preferences for how work gets done on the folks who are working for them specifically because they don't value autonomy to the same degree in most cases. They want some prescription. They want somebody to step up and lead and say, here's my expectations for you. Yes, there's freedom in all these other areas, and here's the areas that you're great at, but when it comes to how we work, here's my very explicit expectations for what that looks like. And so this has been one of the things that has had the most maybe mismatched experience by clients compared to what their expectations were, where owners go in often being like, oh, I'm nervous about rolling this out to the team. And the people who they're so concerned are going to hate it and maybe quit and leave or be frustrated or say, no, we can't do it, are the people who are most excited about it, saying, this is what I need. Like, I need a way to be structured anyways. Their best people are already doing some type of routine, and this just gives them a little more structure and something where they can take it and build it and incorporate it into what they're already doing. There's some breakdowns to this, but basically I can give you the best technology in the world. I can give you the best process and templates, the coolest stuff in the world. And if your team doesn't have the habits around how to use it, then it doesn't matter because you don't have a single source of truth. You had a great single source of truth on day one before anybody got in and started using it and then slipped off and wasn't using it anymore. But that dies very quickly. And so those habits are huge. I'll do a separate video walking through how you build these habits, and we'll make sure that we link that up as well. Okay, let's keep moving here. Number 5, consistent accountability is not optional. You need in this case, we call it a ClickUp champion, whatever your tool is, or tools, you need a champion for those tools. And there's 4 specific disciplines that champion has. Their roles broken into like a reactive component and a proactive component. And from a proactive perspective, the daily spot check, the weekly roundup, the monthly review, the quarterly analysis, those 4 are non-negotiable. Like, those are the crucial habits of this role. Reactive, you need to have somebody who understands how does this whole thing work together? What are all the components of the system from the tools, the processes, and the habit side? And how do we have success across the team? Because that's going to be the key person that you want folks going to with questions. And that should not be ever the entrepreneur or the owner themselves. Okay, so those are our 5 core key bullet points for the ZenPilot methodology for getting work done. There's 3 additional ones that are common. I could have kept going with this list, but there's 3 additional ones that are pretty common. One is tracking your time. So we talk a lot about this, like, hey, how do we use real data to drive better decision making? Let me just real quickly say, I'll do a whole video just on this one as well. You should either be all in or all out, for sure. Don't halfway track your time. That's not useful at all, and it eats up time. Time tracking does take resources. It definitely takes work. I would love it if everybody had the same type of thing where you've got your tasks, they're all prioritized, so you know when you're working on them, you've got time estimates, and tracking your time on this is as easy as just saying, hey, I spent my last 10 minutes working on that, and plug it in. So it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but it takes some resources to go do it. It takes some resources to review it, and it makes zero sense to do unless you're going to track it consistently and analyze it consistently, because that'll power better decision making. I promise it will power better decision making. If you don't know and you haven't experienced that, we should talk and we can teach you what that looks like and teach you the habit of the analysis and how do we make better decisions because of that. But you should either be all in or all out. We'll talk a little bit more about how this is actually beneficial to team members. This is one, so I'd say this one, we talked about the startup and shutdown routines and how team members love it. If you tell your team, for most teams, hey, we're going to start tracking our time, they will not love that at the beginning. And so this requires, it just requires more sales. You got to sell the benefit. And a big part of the benefit is getting team members into their sweet spot and killing the things that are just soul sucking right now and wasting all kinds of time. But it's not a habit that people are super excited about on day one in the vast majority of cases. That's totally okay. That's how life works. Some things people are excited about, some things they aren't, and some things are worth doing anyways. Seventh principle, plan for the unplanned. Your work is dynamic. So in my role as the founder, I have a good amount of stuff that I react to over the course of the week. If there is an issue, fortunately, there's an awesome team at ZenPilot, and so there's very little that relies on me. But that also means if somebody's department is out or there's some issue that escalates and gets through the leadership of the team to my plate, then that's going to take some of my time and attention to resolve and to deal with. So I cannot go into a week if I want to work 40 hours. I can't go into a week with 40 hours worth of planned work because I don't know what surprises are going to come. And depending on your role, and this is largely tied to seniority of your role. Well, it's really tied to like the nature of your organization. It's tied to the nature of your role, and it's tied to any seasonality in your business as well, or broader seasons of like how are we growing over time. So planning for the unplanned means if I'm trying to look at a workload view, so let's pull this up here real quickly, and let's look at weekly capacity just to zoom out a little bit. And I'm looking across the team. For me, where I should be scheduled out is probably something like 60%, 60 to 70 would be like a sweet spot of what's pre-scheduled for the week. And then I've got a third of my time to go react, be creative, like just kind of use that time how I see best to use it, plus some of the reactive stuff that I'm going to need to do. But there's other folks on the team where they should have 80 or 90% of their week planned out. And there are certain organizations where they need to have like 60% of their time available, not planned out ahead of time. So I'll do a whole nother video on this one, talk about some of the examples, but we're trying to create some margin and understand if I'm looking at predicting work, one of the key skills in any organization is the ability to predict what has to get done, what are the right things to do, who are the right people to do it, what outcomes that we need to drive the ultimate results that we want. And then what work ought to get done next week and what work actually gets done. Like the closer those things get, that's a direct reflection on your ability to predict as an organization. And so knowing what you ought to be predicting for is huge. And that's why planning for the unplanned is one of the key principles that most teams adopt. The eighth one, and depending on your stage in the organization, this may be a no-brainer or this might be a totally new concept, but managing resources properly really requires top-down resourcing and bottom-up. And so the quick version of that is top-down resourcing is much quicker to get to. It's going to be less precise, and it's intentionally that way, and it's used for the fast, high-level, longer-range planning around staffing and work allocation. in and of itself, a lot of people like to just stop there because that's way easier. But somewhere that's got to translate into this bottom-up resourcing. So how do we actually work in a daily and weekly engagement environment where production, getting blockers out of the way, helping make sure that we can actually hit our top-down resourcing plans? Like, how does that happen? It has to happen through bottoms-up resourcing. And so bottoms-up resourcing is really about saying, top-down might be saying, hey, Alex, let's go to clients by lead, maybe here. Alex, I need you to take these 3 clients. They're going to last from this date to that date. I think it's going to take you about 15 hours a week while you're servicing these clients. So you can handle, 2 or 3 of these clients at a time. That'd be top-down, a very poor example, but a simple example of top-down resourcing. We go the other way. Let's just look at my work here. The other way to do this would be, and we'll just calculate this real quickly. So to say, hey, here's what your work looks like today. It's really that workload view, but I just wanted to personalize this a little bit more. So here are my tasks. I've got 5 different tasks or 6 different tasks here. I've got 5 hours and 20 minutes calculated for today. Okay, that's like, now I know going into a day, I've got bandwidth here. I either get to work ahead or I can go help somebody else out with something. But I know I'm not fully utilized if I just do the things that are already pre-scheduled for me today. And so it's really that here's all the individual things on your plate. We've got time estimates that are informed by real-time tracking data in the past, so we know how long these things should take you. Not perfectly, but pretty closely. And so now I'm able to say, hey, now we need to juggle some things around and say, Gray's at 5 hours today. Alex is at 11 hours today. Is there anything where how do we load balance that to actually get the results that we want? Okay, that's a lot to dig into, but that's an overview of the ZenPilot methodology. I'll do videos breaking down each one of these points and share it with you. I wanted to give you kind of the crash course here in a really kind of unedited, raw way, so that you could get a feel for, hey, what would it look like to work in this environment, and which of these principles should we take and be applying to our work? If you would like the professionals to come in and help you nail this, truly get this right, you should schedule a call with us. Go to zenpilot.com/call and book time to talk through, hey, what does this look like to take a specific methodology, tailor that so it's right for your organization, and then how does that play out? What does the implementation of that look like? Where we need to train people on the habits, we need to make sure we've got the right process in place and that we're using the right tools to the best of their abilities. All right, thanks for spending time with me today.